The audit plan is often prepared by an audit senior or an audit manager. And the first step is to take last year's file and carry forward the relevant information which will be updated. We don't start with a blank piece of paper each and every year unless it's a new engagement. I'll list the tasks to be completed, but avoid repeating the details of what each entails, as you can find that information in previous lessons. First, we will assess engagement risk or audit risk to establish what level of risk the firm is willing to accept that it may issue a wrong opinion. Next, inherent risk is determined, followed by establishing a preliminary materiality level. Work is then performed to document the internal controls, including the entity level controls, general computer controls, all as we have previously discussed. Once this documentation is in place, we can sit back and reflect upon the design and the anticipated effectiveness of internal controls, which enables us to assess control risk by assertion. With 2 of the 3 risks in the audit risk model now determined, we can determine the risk of material misstatement. We pause to consider the risk of fraud throughout the client organization. This will help us identify areas of significant risk or transactions or accounts that require more substantive testing. And we can now assess the risk of material misstatement by transaction cycle. We are now in a position to develop our strategic audit approach overall and by transaction cycle. We will then build our time budgets and staffing plan and begin preparing the audit team for field work. This in essence is the audit planning approach, much of which we have covered in previous lessons. Now, having been involved in professional certification for many years myself, I'm just going to spend a moment talking about what you are learning in this course and how it's often tested at a professional level. Because it's really easy to get bogged down in the hundreds of pages of detail and lose sight of the forest through the trees, so to speak. So to get your public accounting designation, you need to realize that accounting and auditing are the 2 big areas of testing. The exams you will face in Canada are simulation-based. The US also has multiple choice testing, but these 2 are focused largely on the application of audit concepts. A simulation is another word for a case study. In a simulation, you're asked to play the role and respond as directed. A common role is one of the auditor, and a common request comes from the partner asking you to prepare an audit planning memo. And an audit planning memo largely covers off the list of items we've just discussed, albeit in a summary form. At the professional level, we focus students on areas requiring significant judgment. It doesn't mean that we ignore all the reams of procedures that we've learned about in the audit planning and audit programs. It simply means we focus in on the most crucial ones. In real life, much of the audit planning and programming is driven by audit software, which makes life easier for you, but doesn't help you really appreciate the big picture. The audit planning memo typically covers the following points. First, we start with a discussion of audit risk, and including an assessment of inherent risk and control risk factors based on the information provided in the simulation. A materiality discussion follows with a quantification based on the information provided and the users identified in the simulation. Next, we have a discussion of our audit approach regarding whether there's any planned reliance on the internal controls or not, followed by a discussion of any possible reporting implications that might arise from any expected gap departures or possible scope limitations. And finally, a detailed discussion on the key management assertions and the procedures we will use to address these material risks of misstatement. This list of material risks is often limited to a half dozen or so assertions, so it's not like we're talking about dozens or hundreds of assertions. Unfortunately, though, you need familiarity with all the assertions, accounts, and transaction cycles before you can identify and discuss the ones of most relevance. So that's the most common request. Another way that you may be tested would be to ask you to evaluate a system of internal controls and prepare an internal control letter or a management letter. As we've discussed in a previous lesson, the way that you would prepare such a letter would be to identify the weakness, discuss the implications, and prepare a recommendation for management to implement. This gives you some idea as to what my expectations are for you to take away from this course and what you need to be able to apply off the cuff. That's all for this lesson on preparing the audit plan. So until next time, don't stop till you get to the top. When you get to the top, don't stop.